Every single draft season, we ask the exact same question. Do you attack the biggest needs first? Do you pick the best player available, no matter what? Or is the best path somewhere in between? Team building philosophy tends to be a spectrum, after all. This year's class is going to test that spectrum more than almost any other in recent history. Its best players are all quote-unquote non-premium positions: a linebacker, a running back, a safety, and one hell of a tight end.
He's flying 4-4 flat.
So what do you do here as a GM? How do you balance need with BPA in a class like this one? That is the question that we are at least going to try to answer today on episode 2 of the Blue Chip Committee. Welcome to episode 2 of the Blue Chip Committee. If you're not familiar with this little mini-series we have going, it's a collaboration between us here at Bootleg Football, as well as the boys over on NFL Stock Exchange. Trevor's there, Connor's there, EJ's there. We have 4 episodes during this draft season. The first one went live over on the NFL SE channel a week or two ago. It was pre-combine at this point. I can't remember the exact date, but that one already went live a little while ago. We got episode 2 here today, kind of doing a home and home thing here. Trev, as our honored guest, one of our honored guests.
Yes.
I would love for you to walk the people through our topics for today.
Yes, so we have a very exciting topic today, which I'm excited to honestly kind of kick back and hear what all of you guys' thoughts are on this, as well as my own sort of interjecting those things. And that is the age-old question that everybody always has every single draft season. Best player available or drafting for need? Okay, like what are the situations? How do you break those down? How do you get... Every coach and GM in the world will tell you, of course, we want to draft best player available. Oh, we're going to take best player available. And then when it comes to the draft, some do that, some don't. So we're going to talk about the situations of how you get into the situation to be able to draft best player available. You know, when the, honestly, like things, best practices to do to not make sure that you are pigeonholed into drafting need. And so we'll have the whole full conversation about BPA versus draft needs. We're also going to talk about some combine standouts, as Brett mentioned. We were all at the combine, so we get to see a lot of these guys in person. So we're going to have our combine standouts and some guys that didn't necessarily answer all the questions we wanted them to answer. We'll have a couple of viewer questions from you guys that we got in from the last episode as well. We'll wrap it up and tell you guys what's going to happen on the next episode of the Blue Chip Committee, but we got a lot to get to before then. So I'm excited to kick this off here with you fellas.
Well, EJ, we'll start with you, and I kind of want to frame it this way. This draft class is very unique in the sense that it's possible that the 4 best overall players, or at least the safest players in this draft, are not quote-unquote premium positions, right? We have a very good guard prospect. We have a great inside linebacker prospect, very good safety prospect, crazy, ridiculous running back prospect. And so, if anything, this draft might test the BPA versus need question more than any class in recent history. So I'll kind of let you start off running wild on this. We'll all say our pieces on it, but I want to frame it in that way of this class more than anything else is kind of what this whole topic is about.
It is a really good test class for this case in general because we do talk about this every year. Trevor said it's the age-old question. Everybody says, look, you should just draft the best guy. That's true, but the best guy is a sliding scale. It's, in a vacuum, you draft the best player, but nothing in the NFL is in a vacuum. It's all connected. I think the number one thing to keep you out of getting trapped into drafting a player you don't want, reaching, overdrafting, whatever you want to call it, is a strong GM and coach relationship. When there are competing agendas between the GM and the coach, or they're worried about who's going to get blamed or who's going to get the credit, you are starting off behind the 8 ball and you cannot win. You need a strong handshake. They don't always have to agree, but they have to have a common language and a common goal. And if they don't, you get into a situation where the front office is supplying the coaching staff with players that don't fit, come with a political agenda, whatever it is, and you as a team are years behind now because when you miss on high picks, first-round picks, day 2 picks, doesn't matter, your cupboard gets empty pretty quick in the NFL.
Well, Connor, you're a Jets fan. Have you ever seen that before?
Savage.
Yeah, no, it's a good callback though. I mean, they're right at the list of man, like the perfect example. We're laughing, but in all seriousness, you look at what we call the Mekhi Becton trickle effect during the Joe Douglas era. It basically haunted them throughout his entire long regime, which is about half a decade, right? You take the wrong guy at offensive tackle, a dire need, when Tristan Wirfs was on the board, who was undeniably safer when you just look at the prospect profiles, but Becton with the size and the highlight reel blocks, there was obviously so much upside viewed with that selection. You get a guy that ultimately couldn't stay healthy, and then when you can't stay healthy, you can't develop. And they made some bad financial decisions to kind of slap a Band-Aid over missing on that pick. And then ultimately got all the way down the road where I like Olu Fashanu quite a bit, and I think it was a really, really good pick. But you couldn't take Brock Bowers because of all your sins of the past of drafting for need at tackle and spending for need at tackle and missing multiple times. And you finally got it right with Olu, but by the time you did, your era was over. It was over because you couldn't add in other areas of the roster in those spots. So it's we laugh, but it's one of the perfect examples in recent NFL history of a trickle effect need aspect of drafting.
I think it's also, it's not as easy to just go best player available as I think these teams make it out to be, right? I mean, again, we're at the combine, and every single year they all say the same thing. Well, we're just looking to pick the best football players. We're just looking to field the best football team, whatever it is. But the reality is that these teams, it's not BPA versus team needs. You're drafting the best player available at your team need. Like that's how things go. It's so very it's just not very often that you have the ability to be like, yeah, we need pass rusher, we need linebacker, we need safety. But this tight end's pretty sick, though, so we're going to take that. It's just we don't see that very often. And I think that teams ideally would love to let themselves live in that world. But in order to get into a world where you are even close to that free to draft overall talent, you have to have probably already had 3 drafts under your belt that were home runs, that were like starters and depth players that gave you the ability to do that. And then because you nailed that draft, you then probably have all of your contract projections lined up very cleanly. There's no panic. There's no, we didn't think we'd have to pay this guy. Yes, you did. That was the whole point of kind of like the moves that you made, especially when it's keeping homegrown talent. Because a lot of times, certainly if the regime is the same, then the thought process is the same. So, ideally, every team would love to go with BPA, but I just feel as though most of the league almost always operates under best player available within the needs that they have. That's basically how all of these teams operate. Because to be honest with you, going back to what EJ was saying, most teams don't have the continuity to be able to draft BPA. They don't have the timelines correctly. How often do we see a GM and a head coach both stick around in the same spot for more than 5 years? I feel like it's so uncommon. And yet, unless you have that, it's probably not going to be very likely you get to pick BPA the way that you want to.
Well, I think, looking at it, I mean, it's easy for me to say as somebody who's not in a building. Shouldn't it just be, okay, we're not going to do BPA at a position of need. We're going to do straight BPA. Like, shouldn't it just be straight BPA? Because I look at teams that do operate of, okay, we need an edge. We're going to take the best edge that we can and screw everything else that's on the board. And that's how you end up, say, doing Lucas Van Ness at 13th. And then you got an all-pro linebacker that goes five picks later to Detroit, your rival, who, by the way, Detroit sandwiched that Lucas Van Ness pick with 2 non-premium positions in Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell. They're feeling pretty good about it. And then they took a safety/nickel in Brian Branch right after that. They're feeling pretty good about it. They're extending all these guys. Whereas the Packers missed on the edge, which to them was the BPA at the position of need. And then they had to spend 2 first-round picks plus to go chase Micah Parsons and then give him a bunch of money. So, you brought up this cascading effect with Mekhi Becton. It's at every single position, right? And so I look at it as maybe it should just be straight BPA, because if you're just doing straight BPA and you're getting guys that you know you can extend after 3 years, and they're top of market players, but you're not going to be spending top of market money because they're never going to reach free agency, and you can throw void years on top of that. Their extension doesn't start until, technically year 6. So you have all this contract control. You have these super easy ramps as far as like their cap hits and everything like that. And that's something you can actually build around. Like you can structure your team building as far as acquiring players at quote unquote premium positions. You can structure it around those really easy cap ramps for, say, a middle linebacker or a safety or a running back. And I look at even just this year, 3 of the top 10 sack getters in the entire NFL, only 3 of them were acquired by those teams with their own natural first round picks. 4 if you count the Packers spending multiple for Micah. But like every single year, the top pressure is like Trey Hendrickson, free agent, Danielle Hunter, free agent, Grenard, free agent, like, day 2 trade targets like Brian Burns. Like there's so many ways to get pass rush. And when you chase these edge rushers that are like super toolsy, but you're not 100% sure if they're like actually good players yet, which is another issue because, okay, if like Shamar takes 3 years to peak in Cincinnati, cool, you burned basically all his cheap years just to get him to being the type of player that you have to pay. Right. So it's like, that's the Messidor conversation. It's like, wouldn't you rather just have Bestor be good right now so you get 4 cheap years when he's just good? So I just feel like teams chasing BPA and then letting better players at quote unquote lesser positions go, like they're never actually building a foundation that they can then go and acquire the finishing pieces at edge or at receiver to go make a run. And they just keep chasing mistakes over and over and over again. And then we end up 5 years down the road and they won 9 games a year.
So this to me, guys, too, kind of highlights the importance. You could tell from a bird's eye view when you look back at the offseason what teams had a good handle of the top of the draft before free agency and what teams were behind. Yeah. And that can be impacted by were you going through a hiring process? Because then by the time you got everybody in the building, say you hired a new GM and a new head coach in one offseason, what'd you get? 5 weeks together to figure out your free agency plan that correlates with the draft? And even if you weren't one of those teams and had continuity, and say you got bounced in the first round of the playoffs and you get that process started, I'm always surprised how long it takes for the pro side and the college side and a lot of organizations to mesh together. It feels very isolated in a lot of places where it's, all right, the pro side is making the free agency plan, the college side is looking at the draft. Here's one, and these are higher end examples. Look at the Falcons giving Kirk Cousins all that money and then drafting Michael Penix. And it's not that, it's more of the, like, think of how much of that salary cap could have been allocated towards building around Michael Penix, who was a multi-year starter at 2 different programs in college. In theory, should have been a guy that you felt okay playing because he'd played so much football at the college level and played a very, very high level the last 2 years at Washington. But that's I know for a fact that was not an instance that they were like, we signed Kirk Cousins for all this money because we wanted Mike to sit. No, they fell in love with Penix after they signed Kirk Cousins. And once again, not to pick on the Falcons, it's just the easy example to defer to in recency. But the fact is, that's a side where it feels like the GM and the college side and the pro side aren't on the right timeline. And it goes back to simpler things like patching up holes in free agency. Like we're looking at the free agency class this year. There's a lot of great linebackers. There's a lot of great safeties. Where the ironic part is there's both in this draft. So what teams are going to go in and say, I'd rather just have a starter at safety and off-ball linebacker in free agency, and if there's a best player available situation deeper in the draft, we'll take him, but we don't feel pressed to do that. So I think that's something in NFL organizations that more often than not is not always aligned the right way. And it takes really hard work and long hours and everybody to pour in and kind of speed date catch up on both sides. But that's the gig, man.
But to what you just said, okay, the Falcons, maybe they use this as a caveat, but it's like, we fell in love with Penix, after we signed Kirk Cousins. Guys, Penix was at the Senior Bowl. Penix is at the Combine. Those two things happened. For 6 years. Those two things happened.
Weren't they in the playoff?
Before who?
Washington that year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
oh, yeah,
how have
yeah.
you not? How have you not
I'm not
seen
even,
enough of him? Yes.
I'm not even talking from a tape perspective, because
Right.
the tape perspective is, I don't really think there's an excuse for that. Like,
you've
got to be able to watch the tape earlier. The only way that I'm taking what you just said right there is we didn't get to know Mike well enough to love him. But again, like I said, he was at the Senior Bowl. You had opportunity to get to know him at the Senior Bowl. He was at the Combine. You had another opportunity to get to know him at the Combine. Free agency is a week and a half, sometimes 2 weeks, whatever, after the Combine. Like, you kind of got to know this. This is quarterback. You're not drafting a strong safety. You're drafting a quarterback. You're about to spend $180 million on Kirk Cousins. So I agree with you. I think that a lot of times, going back to sort of what Brett said, which I want to say something about Detroit here in a second, but Brett is correct that it should be more BPA more often for these teams, but there's more dysfunction behind the scenes than I think a lot of teams would ever lead you to believe. And I wonder if, I don't know, selfishly, I'm kind of hoping this, like 10 years from now, when a lot of guys are out of the league for good, like totally retired, I hope we get all sorts of tell-all books. I hope people sit down with authors and they're like, this is the crazy stuff that happened behind the scenes. And I hope we get a ton of that, because I think there's a lot of stories. Real quickly, though, the last thing that I wanted to say about this was, you mentioned Detroit. So that draft with Detroit is the 2023 draft, okay? The 2023 draft, obviously coming off of the 2020 season. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell were both hired for the 2021 season. So their first year was the 2021 season that they won 3 games. First year with Jared Goff. And then the second year, they went 9-8, took that big leap. And then this draft was right after that.
Yep.
That draft, I think, only gets to happen when you have so much continuity for not only Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and where they're going, but also the timelines of both of these individuals along with the quarterback, right? Because you just traded for Jared Goff. So you now have Jared Goff, you have Dan Campbell, and you have Brad Holmes on the same exact timeline. And I think that gives you the free, along with, going 9-8 that past season, which makes you feel good about sort of where you're going.
That helps a little bit.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, you got the freedom to draft BPA because all 3 of the major timelines that matter, GM, head coach, quarterback, are lined up, and that's how Detroit gets to where they are. And I feel like there's so many times where we watch around the league where, like, Tennessee was terrible with this over the last 4 or 5 years, where it's just like, head coach gets fired, GM is hired, GM gets fired, head coach gets fired, head coach gets fired, GM gets out. Like, and it's just, the timelines never line up for some of these teams. You go, how do you expect? And don't even get me started with the head coach reports to the owner and the GM reports to the owner. And it's like, don't even get me started with the terrible hierarchy that some of these teams have. But all of that to say, Brett's totally right. I just don't think that teams give themselves the freedom to be able to draft BPA as much as they wish.
Well, you have to, there's a piece that each of you said, and it's almost in line, like almost in order chronologically. Trevor, you said that, BPA versus best, versus need is not 2 different things, and it's not. It's a slider, right? And you want to be able to push that slider as close to BPA as possible by dealing with all your needs. Mm-hmm. Brett said, the sort of bucolic blue sky, hey, let's just go pick good players and that'll work out. You have to earn that right. And then Connor, you talked about the mesh between pro and college scouting and getting everybody on the same page and how difficult that can be. We just did this in a Seattle episode where we talked about the transition from Pete to Mike, right? That free agency class, that first year's free agency class, came in the door like 7 weeks after Mike got hired. So Mike didn't have a lot of say in that. He might have picked up a couple of guys.
Almost gone. Right after.
And not very many of them, unsurprisingly, did very much for the organization. There were 2 guys out of that free agency class that really sort of mattered. So you have to do everything, and it requires continuity. Connor, you said it requires effort. It requires everybody to get on the same page and do a little bit extra.
It's a grind, man.
You got to get in there, and that's what it is. It's a grind. So if you want to move that slider close to where you have the freedom to what Trev's talking about, where you've made the right decisions for several cycles, a couple, 2, 3, you're starting to see the results, and now you're like, that's it. We're going to push the gas. We're going to floor it. We're going to do what we want. We're going to grab the players we think are great, and we have the freedom to do that because we've done all of this other stuff. We hired coaches well, we drafted well, we developed well, we were smart with our finances, we got rid of our mistakes early, all the things you need to do to clear the deck. Again, it's not a vacuum, it's all connected. If you do all that stuff right, then the slider moves over towards BPA and you can go, well, we got 2 guys. This one's just clearly higher rated in our books. He's not a higher need, but we're not drafting for need because we polished off all the needs, and we see good teams do this before the draft. They look at free agency, they look at the draft class a couple of years out, they look at their contract structure 3 and 5 years out, and they say, how does this whole thing look like it's going down the road? And then occasionally somebody throws a hand grenade in and your center retires when he's 27.
Let me ask you guys something that never gets brought up, because the NFL is a classic league of this is how it's done because we've always done it this way. In this era of whether it's digital NFL analysts, television NFL analysts, whatever it may be, do you find it like, do you think that we'll be in a world in our lifetime where how the structure of an NFL front office and scouting department is different than what it's always been? Right now, it's as simple as general manager usually has a right-hand guy that could be the assistant GM or VP of personnel. Then you usually have a director on the pro side that can manage the pro scouts. You have a director on the college side that could manage the college scouts that are based on area. You might have a national scout, and then you have a southeast scout, and on it goes by region. And they're so siloed in their work for so long. I know that when free agency passes and the pro market's done, the pro scouts do pick up college scouting of day 3 guys to help the scouting department. But it's just funny sitting here, and this isn't to pat ourselves on the back, it's just different. Like, we all have a feel for free agency. We also have a feel for the whole draft. We're each one person at home, where it would be interesting to me, say there's an NFL front office where, okay, I'm not saying to wipe out all those jobs, but what if you had 6 people that just do what we do? They have a feel for the top 100 free agents. They have a feel for the top 250 to 300 draft prospects, and they're going to kind of see the big picture and debate over it, and then use the information gained from the area scouts and the pro scouts and all of that side. But it's interesting that, like, media does it that way, but NFL teams, just because it's always how they've done things, are so much more segmented.
Who's to say that they're not using agents for that purpose?
If
right?
There's
it's
enough
like, hey,
trust there, for sure.
If there's enough trust, but it's like, don't bullshit me here. Like, what's the feedback that you're hearing of what range? Like, I want to make sure that my range is in the same spot. I need to know if I need to be a little bit of aggressive here, because we know that they talk to agents a lot.
Of course.
100%.
And agents run the world. Like, they're tapped in with every team, unless there's bad blood there, which I've heard of a couple last week where I was like, oh, this player got downgraded on a team's board because of who their agent is, because they literally just didn't want to deal with them. So that happens sometimes too.
Yeah.
But it's, if you're going to get feedback, I think that's a good source to get it from, because even for media folk, if you're trying to get feedback from media folk about where you think guys are going to go, a lot of the times they're getting it from agents too. So I think having that relationship with, like, whether it's A1 or CAA or WME, to like get honest to God ranges can help a team try to strategize. Because I mean, how many times have we seen teams draft classes that don't really seem to make sense at all, and they're like, well, on our board they were graded this way, but it's like they seem to like be genuinely surprised that nobody else saw them that, like Emmanuel Forbes at 17. How many teams do you think honestly would have taken him there? I think it's 3.
I was going to say,
but they
less than
believed in
5.
it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting point from Connor. I would say that the only thing that would hold teams back from doing that is the information gathering part of it, right?
Yeah.
Not even necessarily the scouting part. Like if you feel you can still get, because we hear all the time, right? I mean, like Dane Brugler does such a great job of this because he's so plugged in. Like it's the little things that you hear about players where it's like the family background or sort of like what they're into or things like that. Like as long as that you can continue to get information like that, then I could see that being the case. I was listening to EJ talk a little bit more about like just the BPA discussion and sort of just encapsulating all of sort of what we've talked about here. And it got me to thinking maybe the verbiage of this conversation isn't really correct. And the reason why there's no answer for BPA versus draft need is because there really can't be an answer the way that the conversation is set up between those two things. I think the way that we probably need to think about it more is not necessarily the term best player available, but rather at what point does a player or a position become diminishing ROI? Like we need to think of this more of ROI than necessarily best player available. Because let's face it, if you have, this is kind of a bad example because Trent Williams might be out of San Francisco, but like if you had Trent Williams 4 years ago, right? If you had Trent Williams 4 years ago, you're not thinking about this at all whatsoever. Trent Williams is your guy. Now, other side of the line of scrimmage, okay, this is a different conversation, but just go with me here on this one. Let's say that you have two bookend tackles that you absolutely love, studs. Philly's situation, for example, right?
Mm-hmm. Or the Jets, yeah.
Let's go back to let's say that Philly's situation in its prime existed when the 2020 draft was coming around, where Mekhi Becton and Tristan Wirfs are in it or whatever, and you're in a situation where let's say the Eagles would have been on the board, Tristan Wirfs is still on the board. Tristan Wirfs probably best player available if you use those words like that, but it's diminishing ROI for you and where your team currently is. So if we want to have the draft need versus BPA argument, I feel like it's an argument that's never really going to have a clear winner. But if you think about it as more of what is the equation of diminishing return on investments for us? Because that also goes into, all right, well, the New York Giants, they didn't need an edge rusher, but Abdul Carter's there. Well, edge rush group is one of those groups where you can actually build it pretty deep, and it's actually still very beneficial for you to do that. So the ROI of that isn't really a need versus BPA type of a thing. You're picking a player that still has a very high ROI for you. So I think the whole conversation of this is more about at what point does the player on our board become diminishing return on investments for where we are drafting them and the position that they are playing relative to the short-term and long-term outlook of our football team. I think that's the better way to have this conversation and actually get an answer of when do you do these things? Will you do these things if you still believe? Like, if the Giants believed that Abdul Carter is a Hall of Fame all-pro caliber player, you can still take that having Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau on the roster because a world exists within football where he can still play and make a difference at a very high level. You can't do that if you're the Eagles situation and Tristan Wirfs situation. He doesn't play. There's no rotation there. So talent, you could have told yourself this is the best player available, but the ROI formula would not have lent itself to be able to do something like that. So I think that I was brainstorming that as EJ was talking about it, and I just feel that's a much more accurate way to build your team while still getting what Brett talked about at the beginning of the show, a best player type of approach just within that framework.
So here's the ROI for you. For let's say it's 2020 and the Eagles have Lane and Mailata. First of all, it depends on, okay, are they extended or are they on their rookie deal?
Sure, right. Mm-hmm.
And secondly, what is the structure of the extension? Is it very option bonus heavy, like what Howie tends to do? Or is it like what the Cowboys tend to do, where it's super high base salaries that can then be converted down the line? So in the event of them getting traded, it frees up a bunch of cap space. Because if I have two very good tackles, even if, whether they're in their prime or maybe at the tail end of their prime, whichever, and I see an opportunity to get somebody who I think is analogous to that. And I'm going to have at least 5 years of contract control, relatively cheap. And I can get a first-round pick for the other guy. And again, a lot of it is, very much like, oh, and it could be a boat, right? Like that whole meme.
Sure,
it's like,
right,
we
right.
could be getting Jordan Mailata. It's like, well, if you're confident in your process,
Right.
you're confident in your grades, and you have the balls to do it, yeah, you can trade Jordan Mailata there and have Tristan Wirfs and get a whole bunch of cap space and another pick so that you continue to build out the rest of the roster. Like it's a harsh business, but if you are really confident in your scouting process and you have true, unshakable belief that you are getting somebody who can perform at or even potentially above the level of Jordan Mailata, and you're getting money and you're getting picks, that's how you go from being a great team to an absolute juggernaut. It takes confidence, and you have to really believe in your scouts and really believe in your process. But, to Connor's point, when you have the continuity of guys and you develop that trust in your own process, in your own team to come up with really good valuations, like that's the ROI for it, is knowing that, okay, we have a bird in the hand, it could potentially be worth 3 in the bush. Like that's really how I look at it.
Yeah, I think the way to stay out of the trap, the way to, stay on the fairway if we're talking about golf and not give yourself bad lies is to never stop. You cannot get complacent. And we talk about this all the time with the draft, but I really think it extends to team building. My own personal philosophy is you are never done. You cannot get complacent. And it's not just more draft picks when we talk about more swings. It's UDFA. It's trades. It's when folks get released. And to Connor's point, it's a grind. You have to be there every day because you can have the best situation in the world, whether it's 3 premium edge rushers or a pair of bookends who are locked up with good contracts. Injuries, retirements, suspensions, coaches getting fired, coaches leaving, right? Offensive line coach leaves for the Eagles, and now maybe it's not an attractive destination for guys. All of these things can change, and in order to insulate yourself to the best degree, because no team is going to be exempt from all of those things, in order to set yourself up in a situation where you are not on the clock at 11 and the 5th tackle is there, and you're like, well, I don't know what else we're going to do. I guess we got to take him, even though he's probably not going to be good for 3 years. In order to stay out of that, you gotta keep driving. You cannot get complacent, and you need those swings year-round because it is a year-round business. And if you do that, and the best front offices do, we talk all the time about John Schneider, we talk all the time about Howie Roseman. Both of those organizations take advantage of the full range of opportunities. And then if you get to the situation where it's a good problem to have, if you get to having 3 premium tackles, well, good on you. Now you got options. You can trade them. You can turn that into picks in the 2027 draft that we think are going to be great. You can, not have to pay a lot for a running back because you can trade for somebody that is, cost controlled for another 3 years. You have flexibility. It's when you run out of flexibility and you run up against it and the draft is it and it's staring and you're like, well, it's not a good year for X this year. Teams looking for quarterbacks, right? There are a lot of teams out there that don't have the answer at quarterback right now. Free agency classes, not great either. There's a couple of decent options depending on your view. If you're sitting at 10, you need a quarterback because all of this, gestures at everything didn't work out. That's when we see teams push it, and it usually doesn't work out for them because they just needed a player.
Connor, I kind of want to start with you, and I want to go around the horn on this because I feel like the Trent McDuffie trade that literally just happened a few hours ago is perfectly in line with this discussion, right? Because the Chiefs were up against it cap-wise. They have a good player. They want to pay this good player, but they basically can't because they've invested so much money over the years in premium positions, pass thrower, pass catcher, pass rusher, right? Woe is me, I have 3 first-ballot Hall of Famers and won a few Super Bowls. Oh, no. Right? But when they first got McDuffie, it was from making that hard decision and trading away a guy and getting picks back and building their defense with those picks. Now, McDuffie, due for an extension, doing the same thing. Just traded him to the Rams. They got a first-round pick this year, a 5th, a 6th, and a 3rd next year. That's a haul for a corner that you didn't think you could pay anyway. And again, it's very much this could be anything. It could be a boat. Like everybody's posting that meme today.
Yeah.
But I see that as them resetting their timeline and getting a whole bunch of cheap talent that can offset their very expensive players. And by the way, a lot of their expensive players are underperforming to begin with, so they really need those picks. They can't be chasing the bad deals that they made, right? Karlaftis isn't performing like he's supposed to for a guy that got paid. They've really drafted a few edge rushers over the past few years that aren't really doing anything. Chanel's going to hit free agency. Like, they needed those picks, and I'm actually kind of surprised he didn't get traded earlier than this.
Right, and now it looks like they're going to, and of course they have the power to bring back who they want to bring back in theory, but it feels like their entire secondary could be on the move. I mean, you have Watson and Cook out there in free agency. Brett, you brought up Chanel, so another member of their defense at least. It feels like it's now in the middle of an injury phase 2 of the Patrick Mahomes era. Like, we had phase 1. They did so many great things. They've been riding it out with Kelsey. They did go through a little bit of a change at wide receiver, but stylistically, they always wanted to kind of stay the same at receiver. And now, like you said, I don't know if it's a full reset, but it definitely feels like their one opportunity to change what's around Mahomes. And to do that, you need to rework your books, and you need draft capital. It's weird because there's also an argument that 25-year-old Trent McDuffie should be a part of phase 2. He's a good player, man, which brings you to the Rams side of it. The Rams at this stage of Stafford's career are always trying to win the Super Bowl, and I applaud them for that. If you want to poke holes in their defense last year, which was very, very good under Chris Shula, he felt hesitant at times to play more man. Trent McDuffie can play man coverage inside and outside, which is a pretty unique ability in today's NFL. And it's not that he can't play zone, but it's the fact that he can do both things. So that's why the value of this 25-year-old defensive back was so high, because he's so smart. He's role versatile. They're a team as well that good bit of business bringing back Quentin Lake for the long term, but Cam Curl's going to free agency. They have a couple corners going to free agency, so they needed to retool what they look like. So it's fascinating, right? Because it's two teams that we kind of often keep in the same upper echelon of the NFL, but they're in very different spots right now, and that's okay. Like, there's a little bit of awareness for the Chiefs right now of, let's step back and breathe. We're going to be great again with Patrick Mahomes, but it's going to take us doing this to get there rather than always just kind of flooring the gas. Where the Rams, you have to. We don't know if they need to confirm every year that Matthew Stafford's coming back. Like, that's the stage we're at. It's like he won the MVP.
You saw Sean's face at NFL Honors when he said it on stage, and Sean was like, "Oh, thank Christ."
Yes. The quotes are hilarious. They are like, "Oh, Stafford's coming back. Cool." And this is a whole nother wormhole you could fall into. Why I've been skeptical about Tai Simpson at 13, because it's like, yeah, there's a big part of that makes sense, but there's also part of them that goes, who the hell cares about tomorrow? We're having fun today. Let's get another star level player to try to go win the freaking Super Bowl. Especially Sean McVay, where, like, if Stafford rides off into the sunset one of these days and the Rams are in cap hell or asset hell, or they're just going to stink, he can go make $20 million a year on television.
It doesn't matter to him.
It does not matter to him. He could be the next John Madden. So that's why it's so fascinating looking at this trade, because it kind of represents different stages of where teams are at, even with great quarterbacks in the NFL. And I know it's like taboo to say this, but I see it from both sides, this one.
This is an excellent trade for both sides. I think the awareness that Brett Veach showed is poise that I don't think most general managers either see, have the power to make, or even willingly make. I mean, guys, the Chiefs have made the AFC Championship game 7 years in a row, and they've made the Super Bowl 5 out of the last 7 years. Nobody does that. When you have a winning window in the NFL, it is like 3-4 years max. So they are already playing on borrowed time because they have one of the greatest quarterbacks who's ever played the game. You contractually, you are going to have to get to this point. Every team has to do a mini rebuild, and the ones that don't are the ones that have a 3-4 year window, even with as great of a roster as you have ever seen, and it goes away, and we never hear from them again. But it's the ones that go, okay, we knew we were going to get to this point. Time to bite the bullet a little bit. Let's do a little soft rebuild. And what a better way to do a soft rebuild than you knew you were going to have to move on from some of your good players anyways. That's just how the competitiveness of this league works. And for you to move on from one of your good players and not only get the cap relief that you needed, but a first-round pick, a fifth-round pick, a sixth-round pick, and a third-round pick for a corner specifically, huge win for Kansas City, in my opinion, and also a big win for the Rams, who you mentioned are basically on 1 year prove-it deals of their winning window while they have Matthew Stafford still there. So I tweeted this out earlier, but there's no hot takes with this one from me. Because normally you see this trade and you go, what are the Chiefs thinking? What could the Ram? How could they? What an idiot. This is just a really good trade by both teams.
You can see very clearly where both teams think they are. And, they're not probably both going to be right, but they are at this moment. And for where they are, this is a good approach for both teams. The Rams have not been great at picking defensive backs. They need one. They get a young one who's very good, that has flexibility, that, quite frankly, just side note, McDuffie behind that defensive line is going to be a nasty bit of business for offenses to try and navigate. Like, that is a good young pass rush that's super aggressive. And if you have a sticky corner that can take away your top target for 2.5 seconds, and McDuffie can definitely do that, it's going to make life really rough on opposing offenses. So from the Rams' perspective, I get it. For everybody saying they gave up too much, Connor, your point, who cares? We're driving off the cliff tomorrow. Maybe.
Yeah,
who
it doesn't
knows?
matter.
Spend it. You don't get to take it with you. And if they win another Super Bowl, they'll be heralded as geniuses, rightfully so. And if, Kansas City resets and goes right back to the AFC Championship game here for 2 out of the next 3 years, they too will, Brett Veach will continue to get his flowers. And again, 2 very different approaches, but I'm kind of with all of you. I don't think there's big losers here. I don't think we're throwing a dart and saying blank got took. I'm saying after today, both teams are in a better position based on, again, their relative outlook for where they are right now and what they're trying to achieve in the short term.
So it sounds like I've successfully gaslit all of you into BPA is the correct move and you figure out finances later.
Pretty much. That's how we got here. I'll round it that way.
Just take good football players.
Just take good football players.
You can make up money.
45 minutes into the show, and just
my master plan worked on all of you.
And he just said it. He just said it after people had to listen to all of that.
We will get back to it in just a second, I promise. But before we do that, we got to pay some bills. I want to thank our sponsor for today, Fast Growing Trees. If you haven't heard of Fast Growing Trees before, they are America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers. Whether it's for your home or for your yard, they have fruit trees, privacy trees, shrubs, houseplants, whatever you want for your climate, your space, your lifestyle, they've got it. All of the plants you order get delivered right to your door, and their Alive and Thrive guarantee promises that every plant gets to you happy and healthy. Plus, you can get ongoing support from plant experts over at Fast Growing Trees, so you can plan out your landscape, choose the right plants for it, and get care tips for every step along the way. Spring is almost here, and in a lot of the country, this is the best time to plant. So if you want to get ahead of schedule on that, go to fastgrowingtrees.com/bootleg. Check out the catalog. They have 1,600 plus different tree and plant options. And if you decide on something you like, use promo code bootleg. You'll get a 20% discount on your first order. Again, fastgrowingtrees.com/bootleg. Some stuff is up to half off right now, but if you use promo code bootleg, you at least get a 20% discount on your first order. Thank you once again to Fast Growing Trees for sponsoring today's show. And with that, let's get back to it. I do want to round out the show by talking about some of the guys who probably are going to be BPA on the board on both night 1 and night 2. These are standouts from Combine Week. So EJ and I were there. You guys were there. We all watched the drills. I would say I went into Combine thinking that this draft, it was good. It was solid.
Right.
But that I wasn't sure it was going to hold a candle to 2027, and I'm still not sure it's going to hold a candle to 2027. But after watching a lot of these guys work out, I was like, I'll tell you what, there's a bunch of really good players in this class. You have to avoid the landmines, sure, but I could very easily see, the teams that have stockpiled a high volume of picks in this draft, I could very easily see them coming out with some very, very good football players. So we'll kind of do a little snake draft here like we normally do in these shows. Each one of us will have 2 players. We'll start off with Trev. Standouts from Combine Week. Your first guy.
The first player that I'm going to pick, I don't know if it's a less obvious one to some people, but I have to get him before Brett picks him, because I know Brett was enamored with this player because he was on the field level and got to see this in person. I don't know if I've ever seen an O-lineman look as good as Spencer Fano did in the on-field drills. Like I've got his numbers up right now because I wanted to reference them correctly and over at NFL.com, and how they show the little highlights of his workout and everything. I'm watching it. This guy is going to score a touchdown in the NFL. 1,000%. Well, if I could bet on it right now, whatever the odds are, I'd bet more than one. I'd bet he scores more than one touchdown in his NFL career, whether they're giving him the ball as a fullback at the goal line, whether he's an eligible tight end and he gets to shimmy somebody and he starts sprinting to the left and the linebacker goes, wait a second, aren't you 300 pounds? What? And he just can't even catch up with him before he catches the touchdown. Spencer Fano looked unbelievable. So the numbers for him, he measured in at 6'5.5", 311 pounds. Yes, the arm length is an issue compared to other NFL offensive tackles, 32 inches and 1/8. That's on the much, much, much shorter side of offensive tackle play in the NFL. But a 4.91 40-yard dash, a 1.72 10-yard split, a 32-inch vertical jump, 9-foot 3-inch broad jump, 7.3 4.3 cone, and a 4.67 20-yard shuttle. And then going into that is just the way that he looked on the field, the way that he was able to look balanced, in control, explosive. And Brett specifically, amongst the drills where he got to really open it up and sprint, which was incredibly impressive as well, it was the drill that it was the pass protection drill where, they'll have them vertical set and boom, okay, then they got to hit and then they go to the other direction, boom, okay, then the hands fly up and then you turn and
he's insane.
The way that I tweeted this out. I tweeted out a clip of it. It might have been your clip or if it's NFL's clip. I don't remember who it was. But somebody responded and they said, what is so impressive about this clip? And it's a completely fair question. Mm-hmm. He's not wearing pads. There's nobody in front of him. He's not blocking anybody. It's a bag drill for him. And I said, the thing that's most impressive, and I explained it to him, the way that he explodes out of his stance, keeps his feet under him at all times, and then the moment he needs to put that one foot in the ground and then use his whole body to conjure all of his strength, balance, power, to just throw those hands up and punch the bag, which is punching the defensive player in this regard, and then to immediately reset the feet, get to the other bag very quickly, very powerfully, and then again, using all of that body strength to go up through his whole body and into his hands, then to turn the hips, run, and sprint down the field. That's total athleticism. This is a player who I genuinely think can start at all 5 positions in the NFL. You guys saw on the field that he was snapping as a center. I think that he'd be a phenomenal guard, especially in a zone blocking scheme where you're running a lot of mid and outside zone blocking concepts. And Connor, you were talking about this before we started recording the show. I'd give him a shot at tackle.
Yeah.
Let him fail at tackle, man. Mm-hmm. He's that athletic. I get that the arm length is there, but there are things that you can do technique-wise and pass rush approach-wise to where you can mitigate some of that. And we've seen some of the conversations that great former offensive linemen talked about with Will Campbell. That's sort of the things that you could do with Spencer Fano as well. So impressed with this player. He is my first standout that I'm picking here.
I do want to bring up the arm length thing because are we sure?
Yeah.
Are we sure that there was accurate measurements?
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought it up because if you give him even 3/4 of an inch of arm length, and the thing that Brett is referencing is that many players whose arm lengths were measured at All-Star games had a greater measurement. Talking about multiple tens of players had lesser measurements at the combine. So if the truth is somewhere in the middle there, somewhere between a half and a 3/4 inch for arm length for Spencer Fano, there's 6 guys that start in the NFL that are in that range. And I'd say 4. Too. I'd say 4 pretty good ones. So I'm with Connor. Connor and I talked about this before the show. We would absolutely give him a shot at tackle, like right now, because of the athleticism, because of the balance and the power and the ability to mitigate that. And we're not even necessarily sure that his arms are that short, or, and this is something that I think is a real benefit of being down there on the field, that he's anywhere near his ceiling. This guy is not maxed out. He can take another 10, maybe 15 pounds of upper body strength, probably will. By the way, he's an in and out guy. When he was done talking to Stacy after the cameras went off, and he said, what are you going to do now? He said, man, as soon as I get back to California, I'm going to in and out and I'm getting 5 double-doubles. And I was like, one of us, except I can't eat 5 double-doubles. But I don't think he's maxed at all. And all of that is already there. The movement skills, the feet, the balance, the speed, the outright speed. On the drill where they basically take the snap and roll out around the edge and just open it up, unreal. And that's the benefit of watching guys do it one after another, after another, after another. You're watching all the top athletes in the class do the exact same drill, like 2.5, 3 seconds apart. And watching him fly around that corner, you would have thought, Trev, that you were watching a tight end. Absolutely.
I also want to bring up one more thing about Will Campbell specifically, and I think this applies to some guys in this class, because not only is whoever was doing the NFS measurements at Combine not kind at all to these guys compared to measurements done at All-Star games, but at Pro Days too. And Will Campbell specifically, so he measured in at 32 5/8 at the Combine, right? He measured in at 33. It might have been just over 33 at Pro Day. And somebody who would know about this told me that Will Campbell, his left arm is actually longer than his right arm. And they measure the right arm at Combine. And so there are some guys whose right arm is longer than their left arm. And so if they measured the other arm, maybe their length wouldn't be as dramatic. Because there's a lot of people that don't have the same size arm, right? Like every human grows differently.
Did he not know that?
I don't know, but they measured the left at Pro Day.
Because because that's also bad on him if they start to measure his shorter arm and he didn't go, no, brother. Why don't you come over to this side real quick?
I've heard of guys with like broken or disjointed thumbs and fingers, and they go to the healthy hand because it's a jarring difference for the hand size. Sure. And I was like, did you get to pick? And they're like, I just told them measure this hand, and they said okay. So they're not gonna push back against you.
Some guys cheat the vert on it too.
Yeah. Shoulder tightness
on the vert. On the vert, if you take your shorter arm and also be like, oh, it only goes up this far.
Yeah.
But then when you're jumping and you're reaching with your left, you actually get more length with your longer arm if your left is longer. And so like you could cheat the vert that way too. Like a lot of these drills, man
you can't anymore.
None of these numbers matter anymore. You know what?
The numbers are a little bit
throwing
different.
It all out.
For everybody that thinks all of these numbers are objective, let me tell you they're not.
Ruben Bain's got 34-inch arms.
I stood right next to the guy.
You can't tell me otherwise.
I literally stood arm to arm to him, and I was like, "There's no way that he is under 32."
Like historical outlier. It's one thing to be an outlier. It's another to be a historical outlier. Like we've never seen a human built like this before. It's like, wait, what?
This just in: Brett Coleman, very short arms. No,
shorter than Ruben Bain. Yeah.
In terms of the vert, the guys that had tremendous verts, I was over there while they were jumping, and it's now like NASCAR or IndyCar or anything else. You win, you get retested. You're going to tech inspection. So when these guys were jumping 43 or 45, they took them right over the board, measured the arm, remeasured the arm they jumped with, and made sure. And guys that went to jump with the other arm, they had it listed, and they were like, hey, man, we measured your left. Are you going to jump with your right? And the guys were like, yeah. They're like, okay. And they pulled them off, and they go measure their right. So for everybody trying to get the extra inch that way, but 10 yards are hand timed. We learned that. We get to hang out at the Next Gen Stats table while we're down there. Big shout out to Bill and his crew for putting up with us for 4 days. But 10 yards are not laser timed on either end. 10 yards are hand and hand. So when you talk about variances for 10 yards, a little bit more than where you've got laser timing for the 40. And there's still some variance there as well, but when you look at all this stuff, and when you look at Fano's workout, it's crazy to me that you look at that entire workout, speed, balance, power, size, all that stuff, and we're arguing about this. We're literally arguing about this as to whether the guy's a good football player. And I'm like, And Connor, you said something earlier about front offices being restructured. How long until we're just laser scanning their bones? Like, we're not measuring anything. We're just laser scanning.
Who's to say they aren't already doing
bone.
Yeah, I know. It's scary.
Probably should be, because at that point, we're not arguing about how long somebody's
you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's
arm is.
Shocking. The NFL that measures where the football is with a chain gang.
Did you guys see the so I think it was Florio who put out an article about Cardinal Tate's time, and then Schefter responded with like screenshots of all the text messages he got, which I assume from scouts, like reaffirming the times that Schefter alleged that Cardinal Tate ran, which was like mid to high 4.4, right? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting how everybody always has different times, and especially the teams that use their own hand times. Yep. A lot of them don't even use the officials, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the shots that I got, I was shooting at 120 frames per second from behind the table where the 40-yard line is, facing towards the scouts with their watches. And so I look back at the 120 frames per second footage, and you could literally see when the scouts are clicking the button. Buddy, some of them got quick triggers, some of them got real slow trigger. Like, these times
Human nature.
Oh my God, they're not remotely similar at all.
No.
And they're going off these times. That's why the officials exist. But like, a lot of these guys are not actually hitting it at the correct. Like, I have it on video. They're not hitting it correctly.
Back to the point about that with Schefter, I put in my post-combine column for Sadiq. I had one team tell me they had 4.34. I had another team tell me they had 4.33. But in my sheet, I'm putting the 4.39 that Kenyon Sadiq ran. It's interesting when teams tell you that, because they're really just excited about the player, which is always nice. Sure. And yeah, Sadiq's fast. Whoa, can't believe it. But like, yeah, that's kind of like you just said, Brett. That's human nature of it all. At the end of the day, like, I'm going to use the laser because it's the most straight down the middle quantifying that we have.
And maybe it comes down to, okay, we have the same guy timing everybody, so they're really assuming that he is with the same cadence for every single player. Like, we can judge it relatively, right? Because it's the same guy doing the timing. But then there's the other component to it, which is, do 40s even matter because teams are modeling speed off chip data anyway?
Yeah, this is a big one right now. And I think it would be a person by person conversation of like who believes in what.
Well, the 40s matter at this point for broadcast rights and sales. That's what the 40 matters for at this point. We'll never get rid of the track meet. We'll never get rid of the 40-yard dash because it's what people tune in to NFL Network to watch.
That's exactly right.
That will never change. Whether or not we use it as sort of evidence for scouting reports, I think that can evolve over time. But we ain't ever gonna stop running a 40-yard dash.
Anyway, with all that being said, EJ, who's your first player?
Well, strangely enough,
hopefully we don't go 30 minutes with every single one, or we're gonna be here a while.
Probably not, but I will reference a 40. So if you have a 40 trigger warning, just be aware.
No, okay.
I'm going to talk about Jacob Rodriguez, the inside
Classic
linebacker
Ed.
for Texas Tech. That's right. I left Ed in Indy, locked him in the hotel room. No.
Classic Ed move.
Which steakhouse?
Yeah.
So Rodriguez's tape was already good. This isn't about, for me, the combine isn't about are they good or are they not good. It's about answering some questions. And the questions around him were not, is he a good football player? Rodriguez is the classic agile, mobile, hostile, right? And the real questions are around, well, how mobile and how agile? We know he's hostile. And those questions are based on athleticism, and he answered those in a resounding way at the combine. Again, Next Gen Stats gave him a combined 86 out of a 99 for his athleticism score. That's after a 4.57 40, 1.6 10-yard split, 38.5 at the vert, 231 pounds, 10-foot broad, 10-1 broad, and a 6.9 3-cone. And this is where context comes in. Because, again, Brad and I are on the field for these, and they run the agilities for some unknown, inane reason after everything else, after the 40, after the field drills, after the jumps. At the very end of the night, everybody else was packed up and gone, and there were 6 or 8 linebackers that were running the shuttle and the 3-cone. So Rodriguez started on the 3-cone side. He ran a couple, and then, like a lot of guys, he was swapping sides. Interestingly enough, I try and stay out everybody's way down there because this is their time. It's a job interview. I'm just there to observe. Occasionally, some people just walk up to me and go, "Hey, man, I'm Jacob." He was the one out of the linebacker group that just walked up and said, "Hey, I'm Jacob." And I was like, "Hey, Jacob, I'm EJ." Told him who I was. He was just taking a breather between jumps, and watching him interact with everybody else and then having him come up to me. Very interesting sort of little tidbit about who he is as a person. He goes and runs a bunch of shuttles. He slips. He runs. It was a very slippery surface in Indianapolis. Everybody saw that on the broadcast. Like, he runs 6 or 8. So now he's run 3 or 4 3-cones. He's run all of his drills done, all of his jumps. He's run a bunch of short shuttles, slipped a bunch of times. It's late. It's getting towards 10 o'clock here. It's 9:15, 9:20 in the evening. He's not done yet. He goes back and runs the 3-cone again and again and again. And I'm like, buddy, I'm the Rocky meme at this point. Throw in the towel, champ. Like, you've had enough of a day. You're not going to better your time. No, absolutely digs down, grit. That 6.9 came on something like his 13th 3-cone that he had run between the 2 sessions after everything else. That guy is committed. And with everything else, that athleticism score placed him 4th among inside linebackers at the combine when you look at the combination. And that's with the mutants in this group, the Ohio State guys, whatever else. He is 4th. He is not going to last where I hoped as a Bears fan he might. He's going to get picked. He's already a standout human being. He's got great tape. And now the athletic testing is largely answered in a way that is a resounding, oh yeah, this guy can move, along with some other little tidbits about grit, determination, focus, everything else. So Jacob Rodriguez, great football player, great tester, answered some questions in Indy.
I also want to point out Kyle Lewis did that too. He did like 8 3-cones because he also kept slipping. And there was one that he actually did hit, but he forgot to turn towards the camera before it to show which number he was. So he had to redo it again. Like,
boo!
These guys are gassed by the end of the 3-cone. I respect everybody who actually stays. That's also half the reason why nobody does the 3-cone anymore.
I love that guy when guys do it because it's just nobody does anymore.
Compete, baby.
Yeah.
If Sean McDermott was still the coach of the Bills, I'd just pencil Jacob Rodriguez in for 26. If he was still. Now, I don't think that happens anymore because I think the whole reason why you hired Joe Brady is because you're going to sell fans on, like, we're going to fix the offense.
Big plays.
It's going to be great. Yeah. Jonathan Gannon.
So they're going to take wide receiver 6 instead of LB 3?
Yeah, honestly, man, they might. I think that they might do something dangerous.
Talk about BPA versus need, by the way.
Yeah.
First round, Chris Brazel.
Bringing it back. Bringing it back.
But, yeah, he's awesome. Jacob Rodriguez rules.
All right, fellas. Speaking of athleticism, which is obviously part of the theme here, I did go further down the board, although maybe similar range to Jacob Rodriguez, from Malachi Lawrence, the pass rusher out of UCF. My goodness, what a show. I mean, this is someone that came in at over 250 pounds, 33 and 5/8 inch arms, which once again, we don't know where arm gait is going to lead us. Like maybe he's got 34 inch arms. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. The testing, the 4.5 240 at 253 pounds. The 1.59 10-yard split. That's the same 10-yard split Nick Benito had, for context. And Nick was 248. So Malachi Lawrence has 5 pounds on him.
Damn, Nick was 248?
I know. You always forget that because in college he didn't look 248. But he's,
I know. He looked like 235 when he was in Oklahoma.
Lawrence has much longer arms. The 40-inch vertical. A 40-inch vertical at 253.
At 250. Yep.
But did he do it with the right arm or the left arm?
Yeah, right. Well, he did a 10-10 broad, so I don't think it matters. I think this guy could just jump
true.
out of the gym. Yeah, it was a show for Malachi Lawrence. And, you watch the tape with him. Number one, the effort combined with the athleticism is insane. He's just 120 miles an hour all the time, that even when he doesn't win immediately, his ability to chase sideline to sideline in this era when you got to run down the Josh Allens and Lamar Jacksons of the world, like this speed is legitimately on tape. It's wild. But even if he doesn't end up being this stout edge-setting run defender or the most polished kind of pass rusher, he gives so much effort and so much athleticism that he's just going to find his way onto the field. He's got some flexibility. Like, you see him turn the corner at that size when he chops down the outside hand, and it's like, oh, man. The thing is, when he wins, it is such a fast win that there is nothing the opposition can do. And you wonder if he could start to convert some of this high pressure rate into more sacks. Like, he almost had a 20% pass rush win rate, where it's like he came close. There's a couple seconds away from him being a double-digit sack kind of player. So this is somebody that when Trevor and I did edge rankings, I missed this guy. We were just still early enough in the process that I can't wait to go back now and have him in my rankings, because like an attacking front four that lets him loose. You think of D'Amico and Saleh and those kinds of guys, and the Niners of what they always do, no matter who's working under Kyle. There is a big-time place for this dude in the NFL.
So relative to like R. Mason Thomas, do you think it's one of those where it's like, oh, if you don't get Thomas, you can come back and get Malachi type of thing?
I wonder if Malachi goes before him. Because he's bigger. He's just bigger. It's just like R. Mason, and this is an interesting debate, right? Because R. Mason Thomas is a good prospect, and you're right, Brett. Like, they're in the same bucket of player. R. Mason Thomas at the combine was 13 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
Where it's, you sit there and you're like, Lawrence is bigger and a better athlete. Like, R. Mason Thomas is 241 and had a 163 10-yard and was hurt. The thing that'll scare teams is like, you're small and you're already hurt. Now, R. Mason Thomas has some damn good film. There's no way around it. But I just wonder, like, this is one of those things where you got to be careful with the combine. But Lawrence needed the combine because it made you go back and be like, oh, yeah. Like, that athleticism is on tape, and you can carry that weight. And, another thing for our Mason, his arms are below 32 inches. Like, it's just...
Allegedly.
Maybe.
Alleged.
This is a nightmare.
Okay, my question.
What are you gonna believe? You're gonna believe big combine?
Yeah,
you're gonna side with big combine.
No, I'm gonna go do my own measurements. I'm going to every pro day. Every pro day, without a credential. I want to measure
Connor's
those
on the
arms.
road with an RV. No, my question about Lawrence is another one that could be answered by the combine, and we won't get to see it, unfortunately, which is medicals, because I loved his tape. I put on highlights first just to kind of see who I was dealing with before I went to tape.
That's how you see the athlete, right?
Right. And when I got to tape, first tape I watched, unfortunately, he's wearing 2 shoulder harnesses and 2 knee braces. And I was like, combine checks in Indy. I need to see a clear sheet out of that, because even if it's just preventative, it's not a good look. He looks like a Terminator out there with all his straps off his shoulders, his knees. And I was like, all right, if he's healthy, yeah, absolutely bolt out of the blue as a pass rusher. And then to come in, carry that much weight, jump that well, show the explosion. I think he really helped himself. But if I'm a team, I'm double checking those medicals, because I'm like, all right, Malachi, why the 4 braces? Fess up.
Connor, when you were doing media, so for people that aren't familiar with combine schedule, like Wednesday through Saturday, if I have my days right.
Yeah.
Is when players do individual media, right? And so they're doing medicals before player media, and then they'll work out the following day. Were you also kind of putting stars next to names for guys that were, let's say, running behind schedule that day because their medicals were taking extra long?
Always. Because that's when I have to ask, people that are involved in that process, hey, why was I supposed to talk to player X? And 5 hours in, player X wasn't there. And sometimes it doesn't matter. One time I had Devin Witherspoon 4 hours after he was supposed to come out. And then other times there's been players where something has come up and it's like, oh, like that's concerning. Or and it's not like you're not going to be an NFL player. It's, hey, this player that's going in the second round of every mock draft, be ready for him to go in the fourth round when you just want to be mentally prepared for those kinds of things.
Combine week is always interesting for learning medical stuff and learning off-field stuff for these guys that otherwise we would never have any idea. Now, somebody who did have about as clean of a combine week as I can remember for a DB, Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, former Purdue kid. He's played free safety. He's played strong safety. He's played nickel. Played a few snaps at dimebacker here and there. Like, he's just one of these guys that you kind of just put him in your lineup and you figure it out as you go. Now, I saw great athleticism on tape. I didn't expect that. I don't think anybody did, but that was an utterly absurd performance, athletically speaking. And then, you go through the drills and he is smooth as butter in everything. And he looks like a first round safety. And not even that, he looks like a high first round safety. DJ put out in his mock the week before combine, he put Thieneman at 18. A lot of Vikings fans kind of lost their mind. They're like, are you kidding me? Like, we're taking this guy, in this safety class at 18.
They'll be
now I'm not even sure he's going to get there.
Yep. Right.
Like, what are the odds he's even there at 18, considering some of the teams ahead of them, like, say, Dallas, that needs a safety and he's a perfect fit. I mean, the Ravens are going to take another safety in the first round, but, I mean, hell, even if Downs goes before Cincy, like, I think the conversation starts at 10.
Yep.
Truly.
Yep.
Like, he's just a really good player.
He's that good of a player. I agree. Because the athleticism, it's not just coverage. Like, where a lot of people think of when they think of athleticism, they go like, oh, like, look at the range that he has in coverage. And obviously, like, that's great. That's part of it. But there's also something to Thieneman being as athletic as he is in run defense. Like, there are some reps where he fills the hole, he fits the gap from depth, like true depth, like single high cover one depth, where he just comes screaming down the field and he still at full speed lines up the running back in between the shoulders and brings him down close to the line of scrimmage. And it's like, dude, so few players do that. So few players not only have the athletic ability to do that, but also the just overall natural athleticism to be able to play in control when you are playing that fast. So Thieneman, much like Sonny Styles, where it was like, oh, yeah, like Sonny Styles, like, the Giants could pick him at 5. Now, all of a sudden, the conversation is like, yeah, you'll be lucky if you pick him at 5, if he's there. And it feels like the same thing with Thieneman. It's like Thieneman is like, oh, like the Bears at 25, like, as an option, or even the Vikings at 18. Like, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like maybe. And it's like, shoot, now he's got to get past Cincinnati and Dallas. So, and even then, like, I know Dallas doesn't have a lot of picks to work with, but like, if there's an edge rusher that Dallas really wanted or something like that at 12, like Dallas is sitting at 20, Dallas could trade up. Dallas could trade up with Tampa. Dallas could trade up with New York at 16. Like, I think that there's a world where the Cowboys are going to have 2 chances to get Thieneman, and I have a hard time believing that they're not going to walk out there with him given the combine performance he had.
So I want to kind of circle back to the theme from earlier in today's show, because you're a Tampa fan, right? So he's on the board at 15, right? And right now, Tampa's safeties, we got Winfield and we got Tyke. Winfield already got paid, but I would have to look up the Winfield contract. But if there is a significant windfall that comes from trading Antoine Winfield, and you think that you can get a similar type of player with the Thieneman at 15, because you can get a pretty darn good pick for Antoine Winfield. Right. Would you consider it?
They would not consider it, especially with Todd Bowles back. Like, if Todd Bowles, if they had changed coaching staffs, yeah, maybe there's a world where you can have this conversation. But I don't think so, just because of how versatile he is for what Bowles wants to do, both as a safety and a slot defender. He's much more of a safety now. They've leaned more into that over the last couple of years. But I don't think that they would entertain it. And Jason Light's not really that kind of GM. Like, Jason's very much we have good players. We're going to build around good players, and we're going to keep drafting our good players. He's very traditional. Traditional is, it's funny, it's almost like seen like a negative connotation at this point. Like, oh, he's more of a traditional GM. Be like, oh, okay, what are you not willing to risk the farm to trade Antoine Winfield Jr. for picks or something like that? But like, I just don't think that Light would ever entertain it. I also wouldn't, just because it is a little, as much as I love Thieneman, it is a little bit like that situation to me is more of a boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. I would be holding on to Antoine Winfield Jr. for as good and as versatile as he is.
Even if you get $19.5 million.
If I get, what, in cap space you're saying? Like cap relief?
Post June 1st trade, you get $19.5 million.
The only way I'm making that deal is if it is for Max Crosby and you don't have to give up 16 to do so, right? Like, I will give you Antoine Winfield Jr. and other picks for Max Crosby, but we get to keep 16. Like, and I don't even know if
Good luck getting the Raiders to agree to that one.
but that's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of the only conversation that I'm willing to have at that point, because the money's not as worth what is still, I would consider, a winning window, because they should have won that division last year, and they better be a lot better this year with the team that they have and the additions that they're going to be able to make. So they're still in the winning window. They still have every chance as any team to win the NFC South. I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it.
So what I'm hearing from you, Trev, is that you wouldn't take a lightly used Cole Kmet.
I would not take a lightly used Cole.
Very lightly used Cole Kmet.
Slaps the hood. This baby can run for miles.
I know what I've got here, man.
Muffler falls off.
Yeah, my muffler falls off.
Speaking of giant tight ends, by the way, since we are doing a snake draft, my second player here, hands up, didn't watch him before the combine. Did not really get to dive deep into this tight end class. But watching Sam Roush move on the field, I had to like triple check that he was 267.
Yeah.
Like, that was crazy. He is an unbelievable mover at that size. Also, like, great blocker too. Now that I've actually gone back and watched him, but that's kind of why I like combine sometimes. Is it just introduces me to people that I absolutely have to prioritize. He was one of the ones that I prioritized after that first workout, and I was like, this guy is really, really, really talented. I have no idea where he's going to go in the draft. I haven't got that far down the road, but as far as the 8 tight ends I have watched now, other than Kenyon as a complete package and Stowers as a receiver, I think he might be the third tight end that I've been most impressed by watching so far.
I don't think that's correct. I had him tight end 4 when we did.
I was gonna say you had him 4.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm not that crazy.
No,
I don't think that. That was before the combine. I didn't think he would test like. I thought he was a good athlete. I didn't know he was this. It's Sadiq Raritan, Claire Roush. So, and Roush is only going to go up from that spot. I mean, you're talking about bloodlines galore, right? The mom's side, his great uncles, his grandfather, his dad and his dad's brother played college football. His mom played college volleyball. He wasn't allowed to play football at first. His mom didn't want him to play football until high school, so he played rugby. So,
oh yeah, okay, jeez.
That's what I said to him. So I stopped the interview and I was like,
so take the pads off. Oh, okay, yeah.
I
That's
said,
good.
Looking back on that, now that you're an adult, do you call out your parents for that decision? Of like, yeah, rugby is so easy. He was
Why
laughing.
don't you sprint full speed to the Samoans on the other side of the field that are coming at you because they've been playing rugby their whole life?
Wild. But
Jeez.
there is something to learning proper form in rugby without the pads.
Protecting yourself.
Yeah, you're not going to try
for sure.
just lowering your head like a battering ram. So yeah, and protecting yourself. So
that is a sport now, by the way. I don't know if you've seen the what's it called, EJ?
Oh,
I think it's just called Run It.
run it.
And that's
where it's
it.
literally
It's
just two
guys,
giant humans
basically,
running into each other.
It's a televised Oklahoma drill with no
I'm
pads.
shocked that demographic didn't come up with a better name. Yeah.
I believe they called it Most Extreme Elimination. Shout out to all the millennials out there who are
MXC, for
watching
sure.
this show.
Shout out MXC.
Rous is a good player, man. You have over 1,000 snaps over the last 2 years on the line of scrimmage, like in line. That's... You just don't get college tight ends that just play that much in line in a blocking role. Can run after the catch. There's so much to like about him.
Yeah, his size and athleticism, again, when you're down on the field, and we haven't watched everybody before the combine. Again, we're coming to this process later than you guys are. We have the lists, right? They print the lists every day, and then you listen for who's going to run and who's not. So it's not every number or only the top half's running or whatever. It's spotty down through the list, and some guys will do drills and not the 40s and everything else. So that's the reason if you see us down on the field and we've got the list, we're looking at, okay, who's this? Are they running this drill? Are they participating? And again, for the guys we haven't watched, the guys like Sadiq, we know who those guys are. We know what they look like. I kept looking. He would run a drill, and I looked down. I was like, that's Rous again. Holy crap. Like, he can really move. And then he's 267. Like, what in the world? What were his jumps? Because, again, we weren't on the jumps. We were watching 40s, and they were on the field for the other group. And, oh, my God, he jumped out of the gym at almost 270 pounds. Gets to another drill. Oh man, his hands are pretty good for a guy that didn't have a lot of. What are we looking at? Okay, instantly gets the C for me. We're talking about the mark that as soon as I get home, I want 15 to 20 guys for the entire combine that I'm like, I have to watch that guy. He was the first guy that got the C. Like after the fifth time I looked down at the sheet and went, oh, that's Sam Rous again. Okay, that's it. 267, done. You get the C.
Connor, who you got for your second standout?
Second standout for me is Skyler Bell, the wide receiver from UConn. When you play at UConn, no matter he had over 100 catches and 13 touchdowns this year. And I always say you watch the offense and they treat him almost like Zay Flowers, where it's like, all right, get ready to learn backfield and slot and motion all the time and outside, and like playing on the outside. But you get to be around him and you realize he's not small. He's 6 feet tall, 192 pounds, a solid 192, so pretty average size. 10-inch hands. Monster hands for his size at wide receiver. So he's been productive. He's one of the most mature wide receivers in the class in terms of preparation. I mean, he could have left UConn for a much more lucrative NIL deal and was like, no, I'm developing as an NFL player here. I'm going to stay and think big picture, and he was right. And then you go 4'4", 153, 10-yard, 41-inch vert, 11-1 broad. You're an elite athlete. You're an elite athlete with ball skills that plays every single role at the position, that is the same exact guy day in and day out in terms of professional preparation. I'm not saying Skyler Bell deserves to be a first-round pick or a number one wide receiver, but I know exactly what I'm getting from him on day two, and that is so hard to say about the NFL draft.
And incredibly hard to say about wide receivers as well.
Right.
Again, a good athlete on the field, but, wide receiver, historically, throughout the draft, percentage-wise, is a dart throw. If you're talking about first-round wide receivers, the hit rate's like 20-ish%, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. You get down into the second round, that's actually a very sort of, it's a hotbed for picking wide receivers who work out. And you knew you were getting a guy that could catch everything. You knew you were getting a guy that had, run a billion routes, like well over 100 targets this last year. And, very good after the catch skills. That was kind of the early hallmark in the process. But people are like, he's a little small. He's not the greatest athlete. And then you're like, I don't know, man. He's 6 foot, damn near 200 pounds, and he's a great athlete on top of all that. He did nothing but help himself at the combine.
Yeah, and you go back to the work ethic. The drop rate in 2024 was 13.1%. And you're like, ugh. You go to 2025, where EJ, you just mentioned the volume he had was insane. It was 3.8%. So, tell me this guy is not working as much as any receiver in this class. 91st percentile in yards per route run this year. So he's in a production, like an old school kind of scouting darling and an analytical scouting darling.
So EJ brought up the hit rate for first round receivers. And I wanted to go back to the 2024 class, which was seen as an absolutely insane receiver class. So 7 first-rounders in that class. Marvin Harrison, by the end of the year, actually looked like the number 2 to Wilson. So jury's out on that one, but he hasn't necessarily lived up to the 4th overall pick yet.
Trev with a fist pump off cam, like a low fist pump.
Greg Dortch was there too. Malik Neighbors went at 6th overall. I'd say he lived up to it. Unfortunately, got injured, but he's lived up to it. Rome, I think, has lived up to it in spurts, but still hasn't really asserted himself. Like, there's a reason why DJ Moore still gets targets there. But even then, like, the go-to guy when Caleb really needed to play by the end of the year was Colston Loveland.
Right.
It wasn't even Rome, right?
With some
so
Luther
jury's
Burden
out on
at
that
times.
one. Or even Luther Burden, right? So jury's out on that one. Brian Thomas essentially lost his receiver job midway through the year when they traded for Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington. Like, he was at best 3rd on the the list. Xavier Worthy has not become the guy that they hoped he would in Kansas City. Ricky Pearsall, like, maybe could, like, again, flashed it, but he's had some injury issues. And then Keon Coleman. So it's like, and that's the first 8 guys drafted in that class. How many of them truly became like the guy in the offense? And it's Malik Neighbors. So it's a tough position to really invest in the first round and like have all the confidence, like, even in a great receiver class. And so, if Skyler Bell is going to be the day 2 receiver, that doesn't necessarily come with the price tag, but you're getting a polished, complete, mature, and also athletic receiver. Like, who's to say he's not going to be, the day 2 receiver that we see almost every single year that emerges immediately and gets like 80 catches as a rookie?
Yep. I agree. I totally agree.
All right. Who you got next? Who's EJ? Are you next up, I think?
EJ's next. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the tight end pool. And again, the combine isn't about saying, is somebody a good football player? It's about answering questions. And a guy that I had questions about coming into the combine, John Michael Gillenborg, tight end from Wyoming. And this is a player I was really, really excited about in the last draft cycle, and he decided to go back for another year at Wyoming. Maybe it wasn't the greatest decision. Ends up with an injury-plagued year, some low production, and didn't look like the same player on tape. So I go to the combine going, all right, which one are we getting? Are we getting the 2025 one, or are we getting the 2024 one? Now, the 2024 one was really exciting. He only had 31 catches, 437 yards, 3 scores, 14.3 per catch, which was second among all the tight ends who were eligible for this draft in that year, 2 years ago. Joe Lee was first with 15.4. And then yards per route run, one of my favorites, 2.65. He was first among all the eligible tight ends 2 years ago. Interestingly enough, Eli Stowers, he of the mighty vertical jump, was second with 2.43, but Gillenborg was 2.65. That is a very good mark for any receiver. 53% contested catch rate and over 108.2 NFL passer rating when targeted. That was all the 2024 stuff. 2025, almost every one of those numbers declined, so I go into the combine going, is he healthy? Is he back? How's he going to move? Am I going to watch what he does on the field at the combine and get excited all over again? And the answer is, yeah. Again, kept looking down. Hey, that's JMG. Very fluid, very powerful in drills. Showcased more of that athleticism I saw 2 years ago before all the injuries. Ran a 4.6, a 1.6 10-yard split, 35.5 in the vert, 10.8 broad, 4.22 shuttle. So change of direction was there, speed was there, power. Looked really good catching the ball. I didn't really have questions about that. Again, he's got plenty of tape that shows he's good at that. But again, 6th in athleticism score in this tight end class. We just talked about how good Rous was. We, talked about Sadiq and Stowers and all these athletic mutants. For a guy that's coming off a down year that, again, looked like he was ready to go to the NFL 2 years ago, JMG answered some questions for me in Indy, and I'm happy to see it because I really like the player. If you're getting that guy from a couple of years ago, he's going to be worth the pick. He's going to be available in the middle rounds. Good football player.
It's just a really deep tight end class, right? I mean, I think there's just a lot of guys to get pretty excited about. Like you mentioned, it wasn't the best year for him this past year, but really good athleticism scores. And if he's 6'6", 250 pounds, and he's got good athletic scores, I mean, you feel good about where the game's going. It feels like every single team is just trying to get more and more and more into 12 personnel and having multiple tight ends on the field. So when you have a guy that's pretty physically gifted, I mean, there's just so many. Like, tight end is so deep this year. Linebackers, safety, kind of dependent on how you feel about certain nickel defender guys, whatever. But like, it's just those two positions specifically, linebacker and tight end. I think you're just going to see a crap ton of those guys get drafted, and Gillenborg is obviously one of them.
All right, Trev. Speaking of linebacker, bring us home here. Your last player.
Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't want to start the snake draft with this guy because I thought it was too obvious. But if you're going to let him be available here at the end of the snake draft, I'm picking Sonny Styles. How do I not pick Sonny Styles as a standout player? I mean, this is a dude who is transcending the way that we think about positional value, right? Like, it started off in December. I was like, man, Sonny Styles, grading really well, integral part of one of the best defenses in all of college football. Exactly what you would want as a Mike linebacker. Downhill ability's fantastic. Run recognition's fantastic. 0% missed tackle rate going into December. He did end up missing a tackle against Miami, so it wasn't quite 0, but it was very, very low. The coverage grade was good from this guy, even though it wasn't, true drop back, from like mug looks or true drop back coverages like in Tampa 2 or whatever. Still, pretty good in coverage. Somebody who, especially if you kept things in front of him, you felt really good about it. And I remember Connor and I went through a mock draft. When did we do this one? In like December? When I mocked him to the Rams.
That was October, I thought.
Well, it might have been earlier than that, whatever it was. But like, I mocked him to the Rams at 11 because they had the 11th overall pick at the time because the season wasn't over. And it was like, so many people were like, you can't take a linebacker that high. What are you doing? Like, there's no way we can take a linebacker. Now, part of it, to be fair, and I'll be fair to the addicts out there who called me out for this because they were very correct. The Rams don't spend premium capital at linebacker. They just never have. So in that aspect of picking him for the Rams with the 11th pick, like, I totally get that. But there were a lot of people who were just like, you can't take your linebacker at number 11. It would be a Christmas miracle if he got to 11 at this point. Ain't no way it's happening. 0.0% chance. His combine was so good, and I don't even just mean the athletic testing. Everything that I have heard from anybody is that this dude was so great in the interviews as well. He represented himself very well. Teams were so impressed with him. And even by his combine, the podium presser, like, this is a guy who command the room, which is what you want from a green dot middle linebacker centerpiece of your defense. So to me, he has to be mentioned on this list, even if it's an obvious duh, because he was a complete alien athlete. But more than that, he is a transcendent player. Of his talent, his IQ, the tape, and the athleticism allow us to view off-ball linebacker as high as number 2 overall. Connor and I talked about this in the mock draft that we did on Monday, the post-combine mock. I don't know if the Jets pick him because there's a good pass rushers to be had, but he's in that conversation,
right,
to be picked at number 2 overall as the first non-quarterback in this draft. And the last time we would have said this about a linebacker prospect, it would probably have been 1995. And instead, here in 2026, we're about to have this conversation about somebody.
I actually can't remember. Maybe Patrick Willis or Kuechly would be the last one that I think was spoken of in
But
hush tones
Kuechly
like
got
this.
picked 10th.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Kuechly went 10. I would have to look up the last time a linebacker went in the top 3. I'm gonna
Might
look
have
it
been.
up now.
Was it Curry?
He went
Was it Aaron
4th, I
Curry?
think.
He went
Fourth.
4th.
Yeah.
Roquan went 8th.
Right?
Yeah.
When did Patrick Willis go?
I think he was 8 as well.
Was he 8 too?
It just doesn't
off the top of my
happen.
head.
Yeah.
11th.
Not
And
anymore.
And Patrick Willis was like a guaranteed. Like
he went 11th.
P. Willie went 11. Wow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's crazy.
The thing about Styles, obviously all the numbers were amazing, but there was this, juxtaposition between him and Arvell Rous. Obviously teammates, a little bit different, very different as athletes. Like, being down on the field, everything Rous did was like aggressive. He pounds. Everything looks sort of over-exaggerated. Styles had very much the same times. Again, their athletic profile, very, very similar on the field in terms of what they were going to achieve. Styles just glides. It's smooth. It's quiet. Somebody said to me, I was talking to a team guy. He said, looked like he could have run 10 more of those, right? He said, I don't even think he was sweating is what he said. And he was right. He just moved so smoothly and effortlessly. And you're like, well, that had to be slower than Rous. I mean, look at Rous. He's pounding. Same time. And you're just like, they do it completely differently. But when you're talking about command and just overall athletic, transcendent, just smooth and effortless, Sonny Styles easily above in that list. And there are very few guys I've seen run that way. Fano was close. We opened this up talking about Fano and how easily he moved through all those drills. He was sweating a little bit, but he's not the sort of grunting, like pounding offensive lineman. He was just smooth and fast. And Styles was like that, but on a completely different level.
I'm so mad that I didn't say this name because I thought of it, but I really had no idea where he got drafted. I almost said, is he the first linebacker that would get taken in the top 3 since LeVar Arrington? And LeVar Arrington did get taken 2 overall in 2000. So yes, that was the last time that happened. By the way, AJ Hawk went 5 overall in 2006. Yeah.
That's a sneaky one.
Shit.
Did you say Devin White amongst all
Devin
those?
White went
fifth?
Devin White went 5th. I try to forget. What year was that?
I wasn't going to allow it.
2019.
Fast man runs fast.
I think that was the 2019 draft. It was the 2019 draft.
This is how you can tell you're among friends, guys. Like, not gonna let former
Not on my
absolute
watch.
atrocities slide.
If I'm going to open the show with Mekhi Becton, we are wrapping the show with Devin White.
Anybody want to bring up Roberto Aguayo while we're here?
Christian
Kenyon
Hackenberg,
Green.
same draft.
Just get it. Oh, that's why we do a podcast together,
Yep.
right, everybody.
Yep.
People ask Connor and I all the time, why do you guys love the draft so much? Buddy, pull up a chair.
Trauma bonding.
Because our favorite teams
chair.
suck at it most of the time.
I will say, I have another story about Sonny Styles. So, like, again, all these linebackers slipping like crazy, doing the 3-cone. And Sonny was one of the ones that was doing the 3-cone after drills. And, he did the shuttle as well, and he comes over the 3-cone, and, everybody's huffing and puffing. Again, he looks like he's not even tired. And everybody's slipping, and he did his first one, and he slipped going around the first corner. And you could literally, and it wasn't even like that bad of a slip. It was a tiny little thing. And you literally saw him then look back at the spot and like a fucking Terminator just like zero in on the tiny little patch of turf that his foot hit. And he's like, I'm not going to step there. And then he comes back and he does it again, slightly alters, and I have it on video, slightly alters his step and like just bang. I think he did 3 tries max and he hit his time. But it was so crazy how he identified the exact spot that everybody was causing. It was causing everybody to slip because there was like, how in turf there's just like buildup of the pellets and everything like that, and it turns into a slip and slide. He's like, oh, that's the exact patch I can't step on, and he just adjusted his feet a little bit and banged it out. Everybody else took like 8 to 10 tries. He didn't. He's crazy, dude. He reminds me of Urlacher. 6'5", former safety, 240 plus, runs like a deer. I would take Urlacher second overall.
No pick in this draft is safe from Sonny Styles being the selection. I truly mean that.
Raiders.
Now,
The Raiders didn't need a
obviously
quarterback.
the Raiders aren't going to do it, but you know what I mean.
That would be
outside of Mendoza at 1.
An all-time draft moment. Goodell gets up there. Everybody's expecting Mendoza. The camera's on Mendoza, and he's like looking deep into it like he always does. And they're like, Sonny Styles, number 1 overall.
Oh, man. Can you imagine the LinkedIn post about resilience?
What going second overall taught me about B2B sales?
All right, that was good.
That's amazing.
That was good.
All right. We unfortunately are over 90 minutes into the show, so we're going to go rapid fire for the last round. Last round is players who did not answer the questions that we had going into Combine, and we are still left wanting. Trevor, will you start off?
Peter Woods. Didn't learn anything about Peter Woods, and I really wish that we would have learned something about Peter Woods because I liked Peter Woods a lot coming into the year.
Is his name even Peter Woods?
I don't know at this point. I don't know what his arm length is. I don't know what his name is. I don't know anything anymore. But he showed up, surprise, surprise, small arms, which, I'm not going to believe big combine, but at least they're trying to tell us that he's got smaller arms. But the thing about this is, guys, is Peter Woods didn't have an injury that he was getting over. And he showed up sub 300 pounds. He was 298 pounds. My man, you got to test. Like, if you showed up at 310, 315, I'd be like, all right. I mean, I don't love it, but, you'll do stuff at pro day, I guess. You're sub 300. You got to go out there and show me something. You did not have a good year. And hey, you know what? Maybe NFL teams don't think like that. Maybe they've told him, like, hey, buddy, you're good. We know who you are. You're former 5-star. You played great as a true freshman, a true sophomore. This past year, very clearly, was some weird vibes at Clemson. Like, Avian Terrell didn't have a good year. TJ Parker didn't have a good year. Peter Woods didn't have a good year. It was very strange with Clemson. But maybe NFL teams are telling him, hey, man, doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. But from the outside looking in, I mean, if you're going to show up at sub 300 pounds as a defensive tackle, test. I need to see you be athletic. You're touted as the best 3-technique defensive tackle in this class, depending on how you view, Caleb Banks, whatever. But you're touted as a guy who's got the most talent as a 3-technique defensive tackle. You've got to test. I've got to see what you're able to do athletically, because we didn't see it a lot this past season. And if you want to say, hey, Clemson didn't really give you the opportunity to do that, okay. But prove it. Go prove it. And I felt like it was a very strange situation for him to duck this completely and not do anything in Indianapolis. That was very strange for me, and in fact gave me more questions than even having unanswered questions about Peter Woods.
See, on the flip side of that coin, all I heard over and over again was he's going top 20. And so I'm wondering if he has assurances, so he's like, screw it. I don't know.
Right. If maybe teams told him, buddy, we're good. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And he's just going to go top 20. So anyways, yes, Peter Woods, there we go. I have more questions, unfortunately.
Yeah, Gabe Aas, the defensive end from Illinois. Great player. This isn't a question about whether or not he's a good player. It's a question about if I have him valued or ranked similarly to other players, I need to see a versatility of his skill set. And they didn't ask him to do that a lot at Illinois. That's not his fault. He had 5 total coverage reps this season, like 1 to 2 a game. I want to see him on the field doing drills and moving next to guys I have similarly ranked to be able to say, hey, he's able to do that, no problem. Oh, he looks better than those guys. Oh, he's really struggling there. He looks, tight in the hips. He's not able to turn and run. Does he have that versatility? It's going to move him up a lot in these rankings. Again, just didn't get to see it. It's not that he can't do it, not that he won't do it, but the real value of the combine for me, especially because we have the ability to be down there and see these guys do it one after another, same size, same drill over and over again, and really say, oh, absolutely, I don't have any questions about how he moves in that particular drill. We just didn't get to see it. So it's not that he's not a good football player. It's not that he's not going to get drafted highly. Not that he's not going to be a good pro. I think he is going to be, all those things. Highly drafted, good pro. He's already a very good player. I want to see if there's more there, some untapped potential. Because when you're talking about high round edges, that's really what it comes down to. We know he's a great athlete. We know he's fast and can lift heavy things for sure. It's really going to come down to that versatility of agility and movement. And can I use you as a defensive chess piece, or are you more limited because of just who you are as an athlete?
I kind of went with a similar route. EJ, a player I really like, so it's weird to pick him for this, but
yeah,
Germod McCoy. Like, Trevor and I have kept him in the top 15 of all the mock drafts we've done this year. We've reminded everybody how good 2024 was. But he got hurt over a year ago.
13 months ago.
He didn't play this year. This is kind of what we were waiting for, just to be like, you're healthy, you're good to go, you're out there, you're potentially the top corner in this draft, and you just don't do anything. It's only going to raise the questions of why. And there's so many players in this era that just save it for the pro day. But to be fair to a lot of those guys, the college football season's long now. Like, if you just played at the end of January, or you were at the Senior Bowl, like you just brought up Aas. At least Aas was at the Senior Bowl. It's just that we want to see him do other things. Germod McCoy has not done anything. And I'm sure in a private setting he has, but it was one of those ones where I'm like, okay, not here. So are we getting that at the pro day? And
he said we are.
We
but
have to, right? Like, how could you take him in the top 20 if we don't see anything for 15 months?
Well, careful with that have to, because we've all said that in past years with guys that said this exact thing for different reasons. Some guys because the season long, some guys recovering from injury, some guys just said, hey, I'd rather work out, on my home turf. Yeah. And we've had multiple guys, Michigan, who've said, hey, I'm going to do it at the pro day. They get to the pro day and they go, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do it. And that means I'm not going to do it, period, for nobody's ever going to get to see it in the process. Yeah. To your point, publicly, Connor. And then the questions really start. So if something were to happen, say he got a tweak before the pro day, now he's up against it. It's pro day or else. And if anything happens and he doesn't do it, those questions are going to be loud. And make no mistake, some teams will basically use that as a tiebreaker and say, we're pretty sure, but hey, we're talking about a top 15 pick here. We got to be super duper sure.
He'll get Will Johnson at that point.
That's right. That's right.
He might be the second Tennessee corner drafted.
I was just thinking it. There's a world where then Colton Hood goes over him, which is wild to think about.
I don't love Colton Hood's tape nearly the way that I liked McCoy's in 2024. So that would be nuts.
Yeah,
but Colton's an interesting one, and I think you talked to both of them as well, right, Connor?
Did
you bring up
Colton
Patrick
Hood.
Peterson with them?
No.
So they, I can't remember if it was Colton's uncle or if it was the guy that was training them also trained Pat P. And so when they were developed at Tennessee, they were just force-fed Patrick Peterson press coverage reps, and that's who they both modeled their game after. But Colton went out there because he's like, I want to show I can also play off. He's like, yeah, I'm a big dude. I'm a press corner, but I have feet. I can move. And he did that in the drills. Yeah. So if you're just looking for height, weight, speed athletes that are already really, really developed as press man corners, but you think that they have the athleticism to also play off, and they trained with the guy who trained one of the best corners of generation. It's and he's got a clean bill of health. He could go first.
Maybe.
He could. My guy, and keep in mind, I wasn't necessarily a huge proponent of this player before the combine, but I went into it really hoping that he would just show me something, and that's Tai Simpson. Oh. Looking at Fernando Mendoza in person and looking at Tai Simpson on the same day, it is not remotely the same.
Well, that's God's fault.
Yeah, dude.
right. Yeah.
Fernando was one of his favorites. That dude is a unit.
Yeah. Fernando thanks him before every interview.
He does, actually.
As he should. Yeah. Thank you for this 236 pounds of body armor. He is yoked. And he can take damage, right? And this is just something I've really come to believe about quarterbacks over the years. It's not the height and size thing is not necessarily about can he see over the line? You can find passing lanes even as a shorter quarterback. Mm-hmm. I need to see body armor. Mm-hmm. I need to see tools. And Caleb, roughly the same height, not that much more weight, but the armor on Caleb is just so much more, and he can take a punishment.
His legs are huge, Caleb.
Yep. Massive trunk, right? Longer arms, bigger hands, better arm, better athleticism, better ingredients, better pizza, everything, right? Caleb's he can make the height work. You're hoping Tai Simpson is Brock Purdy. You're hoping. And watching him spin it, I'm I don't see the gas on the arm. I don't see the size. And if you're hoping that, he could be the guy that wins with vision and anticipation and everything like that, he lined up under center and turned his back on play action, ripped a backside dig, that's awesome. So few college quarterbacks do that. What about the other 90% of the game? Can he survive? He played banged up this year, and I commend him for that. Mm-hmm. It's not going to get easier to stay healthy in the NFL, and he's just not a big guy. And so I came away with more questions about him just after being around him, because anytime I go to a training camp, anytime I go to a combine event, even sometimes when I'm down at Elite 11, there's 17-year-olds at Elite 11 that are bigger than this guy. It's the same visceral reaction I had when I watched Dylan Gabriel throw when he was an Elite 11 counselor. And I'm he looks like he's 15. compared to some of these 17. Like JKS was throwing right after Dylan Gabriel, and JKS as a junior in high school looked like he was about to be the NFL quarterback, right? It's something I've really come to believe, that like you can't survive an eventual 18-game NFL season without just being a big person, because other big people are trying to kill you.
Right.
You just can't do it.
Yeah, I think that's a point that I had not. I thought about how Fernando Mendoza was big and how it was a plus for him, but I didn't think about it side by side with him and Simpson. Simpson's weight is 16th percentile for the NFL, and that's probably with packing on some water weight to tip the scale a little bit. And then he was 6'1", which is 14th percentile. So you're looking at somebody who's around the 10 to 15th percentile in both height and weight for the quarterback position in the NFL. And I think that there's not a lot of people, myself included, that would have really thought of Simpson as like a small quarterback. Like I wouldn't have really thought of him like that. But now that you mention it, now that you mention the build, and that's what one of the benefits is being on the field.
Yep.
And then looking up those numbers versus NFL quarterbacks. You're right. I think that we now need to talk about him more as he is a small quarterback. That's what because like you say Brock Purdy, and immediately in my mind I'm like, no way, man. Like he's got more than Brock Purdy does, but
No.
it's I still think he's got a little bit more than Brock Purdy does when it comes to arm talent, but now that you are saying all of this stuff, it's not as much as I thought it would be. So, good point. Good point. Good points all around.
Maybe he's
fellas.
Bryce Young again. Maybe.
Yeah.
But if your ceiling is Bryce Young, and a lot of people already question Bryce Young's real Bryce Young's ceiling.
Right.
Right.
Are you going to take that 13th overall?
Well, he's bigger than Bryce. Bryce playing it. Bryce has got to be playing it like a $190. Like the 202 water weight thing where he didn't do
And
anything
we're worried
in the
about
combine.
his safety.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely worried about
And if
his
you
safety.
see all the young quarterbacks in the NFL, I mean, all that Ty's got to do is look to how many rookie quarterbacks spent the first full NFL offseason after the season doing what? They all say it. Oh, yeah. I hit the weight room. I armored up. I took a bunch of punishment last year, and I
got to
realized
nutrate like a chef.
yeah, I got to get a chef. I got to do ab workouts from now till breakfast because I'm getting hit in the ribs by guys that are, 250, 260, 290. And, rules be damned, they're falling on me. All I did this season was get bigger and stronger because I came in thinking I could get away with it, and I found out really quick I couldn't get away with it. And he's just got to ask the Alabama alums. He can go ask Mac Jones, like, "Hey Mac, what'd you do to be able to?" And Mac played beat up this year. All these guys have taken the hits in the NFL, and if he thinks he's going to be able to come in and not put forward a concerted effort to get seriously bigger and stronger just to exist, he's kidding himself.
Tom Brady was also 211, so we're fine, guys.
At 6.
Everything.
What now?
Everything that we said before doesn't matter. We're good. Weight profile is the exact same. We're good.
And to Brett's point about pizza, he can take a hit on a porch while he's delivering, so he's all good.
All right, we have a viewer question that was left between the first episode and now. This is from Willie Shake and Bakespeare. What a name. Stoked about this crossover series. Would love to hear you guys break down how teams balance 1, prospect grade versus 2, prospect fit to team scheme versus 3, positional value plus scarcity. Obviously touches on a lot of the things we talked about today. I will kind of go round robin here. I'll start with you, Connor. Where, as far as the order of what you factor in there, grade versus fit versus positional value plus scarcity, what's your order of operations?
Yeah, I mean, for how teams balance it, so team boards are so different than what we do, where they just won't have, like, if a guy doesn't fit in any way what they do and he's a 4th round guy, he just won't be on the board.
Right.
Like, team boards could be like 70 players.
Yep.
Where our boards, like my board this year should be 325. So it's just like a different beast of like a team. They won't even have to worry about that because they'll just kind of throw it out the window. Now, the grade of the prospect is what matters most because this just ultimately means how good they are or can be at the sport. But positional value and scarcity, of course, then factors in the curve on the grade, where it's like, yeah, I give this quarterback a top of second round grade and we have the 10th overall pick, but we don't have a quarterback, so we're going to take the quarterback. Like that's, it sounds simple, and I don't mean to simplify a really, really good question, but there's positions that get curves. Quarterback gets the biggest curve, right? Mm-hmm. Pass rushers get valued. Offensive, like true franchise offensive tackles get valued. A guy with the upside of a number one wide receiver gets valued in that way. So it just it's another way of like what we do could be a little different than what teams do at times too.
I'd agree. I think that the round grade is the thing that probably matters most. And then, like you said, if you're a team, you're going to take guys off the board if they don't fit what you're trying to do, or if they're not built the way that you want them to be built. Right? Teams have certain thresholds of whether it's athletic thresholds or size thresholds and things like that. When it comes to like positional value and scarcity, I mean, every team does things a little bit different. I think that's why teams have really developed big analytics departments in house. Like for example, not that I want to give away like too much of the secret sauce, but I have a formula that I do which takes PFF's wins above replacement or wins above average metric that is obviously adjusted for the impact of every position. And I kind of use that as a multiplier in 5 different tiers of like if they're an elite player, a great player, a good player, an average player, a bad player, like whatever it is. And there's a number and a multiplier for each of those at different positions. And so I'll take like the final film grade that I have for somebody and throw it in a multiplier. So like that's one way that I do it. But like Connor said, like we're kind of doing it we're doing it in a vacuum. We're not doing it for a team. And so that's sort of the process by which I think every team will automatically start with, here's the film grade that we have on this player. This is what we think about this player. And then you go through moving guys up the board or even off the board with those other 2 parts of the question.
Yeah, how you build your board.
Yeah, that's why the mock drafts are so different. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I think how you build your board is a fascinating question, and it tells you a lot about who you are and how you're coming to it, how we all come to this process, how teams come to this process. And one of the things that has helped me the most in the past couple of years is doing a horizontal board that's both horizontal and vertical, but laying it out per position with round grades, but also those eliminators. Like you said, there are things that teams will look at. And one of the things that drives me just absolutely batty being in this business is watching, somebody saying, oh, he's a great player and they have a need at that position, so he should go there, when we all know there is not a chance in hell that player is going to that team, because they're not going to take a defensive end under 260 that can't set the edge. They're talking about a 240-pound fireballer that has not set an edge yet. Like, that guy is not on their board for that spot. Now, if they want a DPR and they're going to prioritize that or grade that on a curve, cool. But in terms of, they have this need because this guy left, they have a hole in their starting defense, and they're just shoving whoever's got a high grade or whoever had a nice film score or just whoever had college production. That's the one that really gets me. But laying that board out horizontally has really helped me so that I can quickly, as I'm doing media for different teams and I'm looking at their team needs, and then I'm thinking about who's their DC, how do they run their defense, is this going to work in their system, is it going to be a value, is it going to be a multiplier, or is this going to be a liability, and just crossing those guys off. And it really brings things into focus in a particular position very, very quickly, where I can go on pretty much any team's radio and talk about who they might pick, and I've got 4 guys that are probably on their board. And then sure, there's some value picks down the board, like, hey, if this guy that is the 240 pounds ends up for some reason in the 5th round because of medicals or character or whatever, okay, we still had a first round grade on him. We're gonna come back around and take the chance at that point. But in terms of who they're gonna pick, I'll just qualify it as in line. Those boards get really small really quick, and when those talent pools start to dry up, it goes right back to the theme of today's episode. That's when you see panic. That's when you see reaches. That's when you see trade up. And Brett, you and I have done this for years on the Bootleg live stream, right? If this guy goes, watch what happens, right?
Yeah.
If this guy goes,
players.
we're going to see these 2 teams panic, and one of them's moving up immediately because there's nobody else. It's the point of no return, right? It's the cliff. If they don't get the next guy, and there's 2 teams that want him, and there's 1 guy left, once that guy goes, we're going to see movement, right? And more times than not, we've been correct when that's going to happen, because there's just, what else are you going to do? The draft is the last stop. You need the guy. There's, 1 guy left and 2 teams. It's musical chairs.
Yeah, when there's 5 tackles that go in the first 12 to 13 picks in this class, the race for Blake Miller, Trev's second favorite son behind Akeem Mesidor, is there will be one. I'll tell you that much.
No.
The real question is if both Utah tackles are part of those top 5. I think they will be. Anyway, we are 2 hours into this show, gentlemen, as we tend to do when we get together. So I think we'll wrap this thing up. Connor, you have our schedule for the rest of draft season.
Yes, I do. I need to look down in front of me to make sure that I was like, I have our schedule. Yes, I do have our schedule. If you missed the first episode, if you made it this far and you missed the first episode, boy, do we have a treat for you. That's already live on the NFL Stock Exchange channel. Of course, you're watching this episode on Bootleg's channel. If you want to make sure you don't miss episode 3, go subscribe to the NFL Stock Exchange channel as well. And if you're watching this and you're not already subscribed to Bootleg, well, what the hell are you doing? So make sure you're subscribed to both. You'll never miss a show. Episode 3 will be released on March 27th, once again, on the NFL Stock Exchange channel. And then the final episode will be released right here on the Bootleg channel, episode 4. That will be April 17th. Not too far before this year's NFL draft.
And then for the next episode, which Connor mentioned will be hosted on the NFLSE channel, we're going to be talking about another age-old question. Do you draft the quarterback first or do you build the team first? When you're in this opportunity where it's like, man, the team's so far away, we got a chance to take a quarterback, maybe in a not as obvious situation, or are you really focused on building the rest of the team first and then getting quarterback? So we're going to talk about timelines and equations, things that go into that when it comes to team building. That'll also be around the same time where a lot of pro day things are happening. So we're going to go around the pro day circuit, talk about some, hopefully some verified athletic measurements from we see at the pro day. I don't know when Tennessee's is, but obviously we talked about Germod McCoy being somebody that's a big deal to check in on. So we'll check in on all that stuff. And then I have in here at our sheet the best way to get in viewer questions here for the show. EJ, what is the best way for people to get questions in here to get in on the show?
The one we pulled today came from the comments of the first show, and a lot of folks said, again, just like our question of the day person did today, love the collaboration. I'd love to hear you guys talk about blank or hear you address whatever. Tons of great questions. Keep them coming. We saw a bunch more in there. Who knows if we don't get any good ones, which I can't imagine we won't, but we could always go back to episode 1 comments, mine those a little bit further because there were multiple great questions. And obviously, 2 hours into this thing, we love talking about it. We love getting the gang together and addressing all this stuff for you on Blue Chip about the NFL draft. And man, I don't know about you guys, but coming home from the combine, now it just feels like a race. Like I got home, I swear I could hear the ticking of the stopwatch. I don't have one in the office, but like there are only so many days. There's lots of things to do, and we love it, but it is foot to the floorboard time.
Yeah, I have 200 players to go through in 8 weeks, so that's
TikTok
great for my marriage. Can't wait. Anyway, thank you to everybody. Who's married in draft Twitter? Not a good idea. All right. Thank you all for watching and listening, wherever you happen to be watching and listening. Thank you to our sponsor, Live Trees. Thank you to Blue Wire for putting this together. Thank you to our wonderful editors. I think that's all my thank yous. Again, come back to the NFL SE channel for the next show. And then by then, we'll ideally have a whole new fresh set of arm lengths from all the pro days. So we will see you then. And until then, later.